Hello, hello, D&Ders, RPGers, Game Masters, and I guess Dungeon Masters and Space Masters for that matter. I'm going to look at Stars Without Number. I know I'm going to talk about White Star, but I want to explain what I did with White Star based on what I saw with Stars Without Number. Stars Without Number has a really interesting space, flight, and battle. Obviously, like Crawford, who came out with this entire thing, did an excellent job with it, except I found it, my group a little cumbersome. They had a hard time messing with it, so I kind of augmented it and took it and dropped it into White Star. So first I gotta explain where I got the idea from. This is Stars Without Number, so this is the second edition. So usually when you have a space battle, it's usually a pilot versus everybody else, and then you're trying to stick everybody else in the crew. So he came up with a really, really cool way of getting everyone involved by having positions in the ship. So I'm gonna kind of go through this first, explain this concept, and then show you how I took it and used it in a very simpler manner. I think it's simpler, but we'll find out how that works for people, okay? So there's a couple things with starships. They have a spike drive. So this is not faster than light drives that I talk about with White Star. This is spike drives because this is Stars Without Number. All right, so to use the actual spike drive, you have to roll your intelligence plus navigation if you have that skill. And the skill sets are a little different in Stars Without Number, actually quite a bit different than when you're doing White Star, right? But you roll 2d6. A lot of the rolls are based on 2d6, kind of like Traveler. I guess I never played Traveler, but that's what they say it's like. So in battle, flight is intelligence or dexterity, plus you have to have the vehicle or space type thing. And this is where I'm going to get confused between the first edition and second edition of the game. First edition, you had a whole bunch of different vehicle choices. I kind of liked it because I don't understand how driving a car is like flying a spaceship, but they went back and forth, I guess, to make it more better continuity to it. I have no idea why he did what he did, but it's interesting nonetheless. But there's a scale of what happens, right? So you have to beat a 7 to fly properly, right? This is with the 2d6. That's actually in the center of the bell curve, right? If you ever played craps, 7 is most the number that comes up the most, essentially, right? So then everything changes, like trying to beat target score based on where you're going. If it's an uncharted territory, it's +6. If your rudder's old, it's +2, so that makes it a 9. Get the idea? You just add that number to it. You got to beat that number, rolling 2d6. Of course, you get your bonuses and stuff, so you should be able to do it, right? And obviously, if the rudder's like really young, all right, if you're trimming your horse and you know, how would you say, these are, the only thing that's really kind of help you is if you have your rudder, which I'm not really 100% sure what that was because I kind of stopped playing this game. It gives you kind of like a bonus because you're subtracting it from 2d6. I don't know. That's a little confusing for me, but so it makes the base roll only a 5. You have to beat a 5, not base 5. This is why my players get confused because I guess I got confused, which is kind of shows you my intellectual ability is not big enough to do this. I actually took this and drop this into White Star because I actually like it. What happens when you go the wrong direction? You roll, this says 2d6. Actually, intelligence plus 2d6. Let's just say roll 3d6 and see what happens. Okay, so I kind of changed that a little bit, but this is what I use in White Star. If you do something wrong, what happens? Okay, so there's something that you can do. Every part of the starship has a job. So it's the job of the comms is like a hide and seek you can do, and there's modifications you do based on what's going on. Obviously, it's really, really hard to hide from a planet because it scans from all over. And it's kind of cool, right? So your observer is a planet. You have to add 5 to try to make that roll. So you have to beat a 7. Plus 5 makes it 12. It's really hard, right? If it's a fighter ship, they're small. They don't have as good scanning ability, so it's just a 7, right? So you get the idea? As the ships get bigger, right? If it's a passive sensor, which means it's just not really trying to scan for something, you show up, it's a -2, so it'll be a 5, you got to beat it. It makes sense to me. I like it, except like I said, it was really hard to explain and get a group of people that have day jobs to try to figure out what's going on and try to get them to remember every time you're going to play it. And it gets really, I would say, cumbersome. Like some people are really dedicated to the task, wouldn't have a problem with this, but people that are playing multiple games, because we had 3 different games going on. One of them is kind of like a gothic horror one, in which you're kind of finding werewolves and vampires and different things like that. Another one's like a true dungeon crawl. Like I think we're going Rop and Othlic, and that was really kind of awesome. And then we're trying to do Stars Without Number. This was too steep of a learning curve, and they got soured on it really quick. And that's on me. I think I reached I was Icarus. I flew too close to the sun. I melted my wings and wax trying to do this right here, right? So, and then I explain what a pilot, escaping 1 and 2. I'm just showing you this because I'm not going to use this, but I actually went through great detail trying to teach a group of people how to play this. And this was very, how would you say, unsatisfactory. I gave a flow chart. So the captain uses charisma and leadership abilities, and everybody has what they would use to do their thing. So I'm giving proper accolades to those that kind of came up with this. And I like I said, the Stars Without Number, the author of that, really came up with a really cool way of doing it. And I explained that you gain points by each thing you do. This took like over an hour and a half to explain, and then they hated it. So it just kind of didn't work. I try to explain, you have your cost points of doing different things. And so critical or command points, I'm sorry, when you're doing this thing, and it pays back into a system. And you get the idea. If you really, really wanted to use this with your group, you're playing Stars and I'm trying to explain it. You go to my resource page and you could grab it and try to show it to them, explain it, and get the book. Like I said, this is in the 2nd edition, but I use some of the 1st edition concepts, especially what you can fly, right? So you have to be a vehicle spacer to actually use the thing in space, right? So, and then you have a bunch of Brit actions. And I kind of actually run through a scenario, actually go through this whole thing and do a scare check. And also here's command points, cost to value. And then I show a picture of a ship and explain why things are laid out the way they are. And I try to make it so you can't communicate between it. And this is the upper deck cockpit. This is the Lakota. And there's the captain, the pilot, the gunnery, comms, engineering is towards the back. And so when the battle communication with the players is minimal, right? So each player must decide their actions. The captain just directs who goes when. So I was having this interesting, fun time with it, and I screwed it all up. So how do I fix that? Now, see, the thing about it is, like I said, you have different players than I have. Like my players, everybody who plays in the group are players I've taught Dungeons and Dragons to. We only have one veteran to the war, and he's been playing for a while. And so that person, kind of like played when I played and just kind of adapted 5e, and then very, very versatile individual that's playing that, right? Well, he's gone now. She's here. So there's a girl that plays with me, and she's really good at it. Gets the whole role playing. And so what's interesting about her is when she's playing, she really wants to develop the characters. She's a totally different type of DM. So between both of us, it's kind of like we have these styles, which is sort of fun because when our group plays, it's kind of like, okay, here comes Duick. He's going to do his thing. It's very tactical. It's where everyone's playing something, has this big overarching thing that's kind of this. And then she goes more into like aspects of role playing and developing this and very, I say, fascinating storyline that's got multi-layers to it. I'm always thinking there's a turn and some evil in it, but people just say I'm paranoid because I'm used to, I grew up in the 80s where everybody's going to die. So that's usually how Dungeons and Dragons work. So let me jump back one. And I am going to show you how things work with what I came up with. This is for White Star. So I gave you the history on how I got to this point. And now I'm going to show you the concept of spaceship battle, White Star style, right? So this is Duick's Dungeon Easy Guide. I use my fingers in the air. You can't see because I'm starred out. But there is just a click on the button. It tells you all your options. Okay, so if you want to go back, you just click that, you can play, right? So you don't have to scroll to the end. If you're going to use this concept, it's very accessible, right? Let's start off with how this works. So I'm going to grab a crew of 5. You have a captain, a pilot, a communication person, an engineering person, and somebody doing gunnery. Okay, so this is pretty much in a nutshell all the things they can do on one little slide. So the captain is going to use the charisma bonus. It could be an aristocrat for that matter, right? Going to use this charisma and interaction skills to lead the rest of the group. And they're going to basically be a DC 10 roll. If they do, a +1 goes to every crew member on the board. I'll give an example of how this works. This works really, really nice and it's fun. So the pilot is going to use their dexterity and their navigation skill to fly the craft. So you have 2 different choices. Everybody has 2 different choices here. The first choice, pursue in position, means you're trying to attack. Evade the enemies means you're trying to defend yourself and get out of the way. So this gives a +1 to an attack, and this one gives a +1 to armor class. This is exactly the same thing for each one of these things, so it's kind of fun. Communications, you could either scan planets and enemies, etc. It gives you a +1 to attack. So all the bonuses are going to go down to the gunnery, okay, if you're getting to attack. If you have +1 to AC, it just goes to the AC of the ship. Okay, so it's just a really kind of very sweet, very easy way of playing it. And I taught a group of AP chemistry girls that I showed you their splash page that they got it and they loved it because it was like Battleship. Because I haven't really talked about the other end of it. How do you play in the grid, right? So then next one's engineering. You can either boost energy to the guns, which increases the damage and adds 1 to the attack, or boost power to the engines, which increase the impulse speed to get the hell out of there, or +1 to AC. And the last part's the gunnery. Gunnery doesn't get to do anything but shoot. So their one choice is to shoot. They don't get to decide if they're going to attack or defend with a shot. They just shoot, right? Keep in mind, I keep putting this here because I think it's really important for people to know I am not doing the official just +1, just -1. You get a little more if you're 17, 18. So +2, this is +1. Obviously 5 to 8 is -1 and 3 or 4 is +2. So just keep that in mind because it does change the gameplay quite a bit. So this is how it's set up. It's your nice little flow chart, okay? So you 1d20 plus your stat bonus plus your skill, and you have to beat a 10 to succeed. So the captain's going to use his charisma score, right? And he's going to use, obviously, his stat bonus plus his skill if he has interaction to beat the 10. And if he wins, he gets a +1 to the rest of the crews for their rolls, which is kind of cool. That means everybody gets to roll in a battle. That's what I want. I want everybody, not just one person playing, not just two, the whole crew, all right? And if they have 2 sets of guns, then I have another gunner, right? So you think about if more guns you have, the more people get to play. This is just kind of the way I play this, right? So here's the pilot. He gets an intelligence bonus plus navigation. And if he's successful, right, he gets +1 to the gunnery or the armor class. It's just a flow chart of the thing I showed you up here. This right here, it's just a flow chart for easy use. So I show the people when they're playing how they're going to do this, right? Once again, this goes to +1 to gunnery or increase the damage, or goes to +1 armor class. The gunnery only has 1 job. Dex bonus, crew, all the crew bonuses, and targeting if the ship has targeting, and then 1d20. See if you hit what you're supposed to hit, okay? And the last one's the comms, which basically you get +1 to the gunnery or adds to armor class, right? How does comms add to the armor class? It says right here, it's able to jam the signals from other ships used in targeting. Does that make sense? This is kind of a weird way to play, and it's actually kind of fun, right? So in battle, the turn order is determined by the captain of the vessel. And this is actually the same picture from the last one. I say it looks like the Lakota. You have pilot, captain, gunnery, comms, and engineering. And so the captain decides which order we're going to go in, if we're going to take evasive or attacking maneuvers. And that person makes the call, everyone else follows suit, okay? So here's an example. So it works really good. Captain orders the pilot to position the ship for battle, comms to scan for weaknesses, and engineering to boost the power to the main guns, okay? So the captain rolls a 1d20, he gets a 9, +1 for charisma, +1 for action, equals 11. It's greater than or equal to 10, so it's +1 the whole crew. So everybody's gonna get a +1 to their die roll, okay? The ship's armor class is 14 to start with. I put this here because you're going to see it change in the other example, right? So the next thing is the pilot. The pilot's going to position the ship for battle. So the pilot rolls a 1d20, gets a 6, +1 for the captain, +2 for intelligence, +1 for navigation, right? It's a 10. It's greater than or equal to 10. She is successful in positioning the ship for battle, so it's a +1 to the gunnery. So gunnery is collecting all the bonus points, right? Armor class still remains as 14. The next, because it says comms, we're going to go to comms next. So look at this. Comms is going to scan for the weakness. So the comms roll 1d20, gets a 5, +1 for the captain, +1 intelligence, +0 attack, does not beat the 10, right? Fails to scan the ship, so 0 to the gunnery. So I just had to show you a failure because it's not always going to be successful, but here we go, right? The next one is engineering. Engineering rolls a 1d20, gets a 12. Oh, that's going to beat automatically a 10. So +1 to gunnery and adds 2d6 for damage. So now look at this. The guy who's gunning gets a +3, right? 1d20 plus his dex bonus, right? +3, plus targeting, plus crew bonus. Look what they're going to get. He's going to get a giant whopping, quite a bit to hit. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so in the end, this guy is going to roll, get 18 to hit, and obviously hit this thing, and then he does extra damage to it at the same time. So this is a way of playing the game, so it kind of makes sense, right? Like I said, this is, say the gunnery, he's got a gunnery thing, he's +2 for the dexterity, 1 for the actual tech, I guess, or whatever he's using. So this is kind of like an interesting way to kind of figure this out. Let's do a defensive maneuvering, all right? So you can see this makes it quite easy for the attack. Get a huge bonus. Now let's say if you're going to play defensive maneuvering, okay? So here's the captain's orders. It wants the pilot to evade the enemy, comms to jam the enemy signal, and engineering to boost power to the shields. Captain rolls, gets a 9 plus his bonus, +1 the whole crew. Everybody gets a +1. So the captain's really important because it really is going to help everybody else for their subsequent rolls, okay? So then the pilot's going to take maneuvering, right? If he beats the 10, you add 1 to the AC. Okay, boom, right? So you can see how the AC is going to start going up every time we do this, right? If comms win the roll, right, beats it, she gets a +1 added to her armor class of the ship. So that's another, that goes from 14, 15. Now we're at 16. Engineering is going to make its maneuver. All of a sudden, it's going to basically be able to boost the shields. So it's a +1. Now you have an armor class of 17. You start at 14, now you're at 17. Now, that's the most you'll get is a +3 for the pilot, engineering, and comms. Your AC can't go higher than that, right? But it's gone up quite a bit, right? So then the gunnery is still going to shoot. He's still going to do his thing, right? So it's 12 is his 1d20 +3. He only gets a 1 crew bonus. That's just from the captain. Doesn't get the rest of it. So it's going to be able to hit a 16. Let's say that's going to hit the thing. His damage is less because of the sheer fact he's not getting the bonus of 2d6 for engineering, but the AC goes much higher, and therefore the ship is more defendable. That's the concept here, right? So this is the whole thing in a nutshell. I kind of went through it really fast. If you want to go back and take a look at it, I mean, I say fast, 18 minutes, but this is everything in your choice pattern. The captain, he's going to give his leading. He's going to give 1 to everybody. A pilot, disposition, gets +1. Comms, starting gets +1. Engineering, boost the guns, gets a +1. So all these, you get up to +4 added to the gunnery's attack roll, and he increases the damage by 2d6, right? And defensive tactic maneuvering, right? Captain gets a +1 if they lead properly. Pilot learns to evade properly, gets a +1. Pilot comms jams the signal, gets a +1. And engineering boosts the shields +1. So what we end up with is these 3, 1, 2, 3, gets added to the ship's armor class. And the +1 is just from the captain starting it, gets added to the gunnery attack roll. So this is, like I said, a different way of playing it. It's really, really simple compared to Stars Without Number. I like Stars Without Number. Let's get everyone. I've never played like a ship battle kind of thing, because D&D, you really don't have that. I guess if you had, I know, this is something where it's pretty crucial to the element of playing in space is that you're in a spaceship. How do you have Space Wars? I got to talk more about the Space War thing next, but this pretty much concludes this entire talk. So have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, put them down in the comments, and hopefully I can answer them so they seem a little sensible. Like, we've played it, it's been played through it, it makes sense. And like I said, the people that played it really enjoyed it, especially with the way I do Space Battle. So I'll explain that in the next video. Thank you much.